ready right now.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Is this me?
That's you.
Okay. You saved my hat. Thank you.
Okay, let's go. We've got a quorum, and so we'd like to call the meeting. Why does this not sound as loud as it does in the other room?
It's not a hollow desk.
Yeah. All right, so I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome you all, everyone. And I've been singing Christmas carols
Yeah.
last week at old folks' homes and stuff. So,
Nice.
like, are we old folks too? Except some of the younger.
Some of us
Merry
are.
Christmas, Merry Christmas to all of you. You know, some of you are happy holiday people, so that too. You know, so we just want to welcome you all and hope that you have a real good holiday and that you don't spend too much money.
Now our economy wants us to spend money.
All right, and I'd like to have a motion to adopt the agenda. If
So moved.
okay,
Second.
all right. So all those in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Okay. I guess the speaker's not loud enough, but that's okay. All right. So we've got some action items. Higher Education Center, or early work amendment approval. Okay. So who's going to do the presentation?
So now Mr. Mignardo is going to lead this discussion.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Chairman and board members, for allowing us to present on behalf of Santa Fe Community College today. We're really excited about our AGC project. We're making great strides. And there's several representatives around the table, the design consultants and architects, our construction consultants and architects, of course our staff, Alex, our campus project manager, and Tina, our campus project manager too on this project. It's going to take more than one to get it done. And we're just pleased to bring this project forward to you today and to ask for your approval on the early work package amendment. The early work package amendment that we're asking to approve before you today allows the work to proceed simultaneously for procurement and to complete our construction drawings. So it allows us to complete both those tasks simultaneously, which in the long run will save us about 2 months on the project. So it's a benefit for all of us. It's part and parcel of the total price of the contract. So there's no extra fee for the early work agreement. It really just allows us to do simultaneous tasks. Is what it allows us to do. We can pursue procurements at the same time of completing our construction drawings. At this point, Alex is going to kind of give us a heads up and a current status on the early work amendment, and he'll give you the specifics on the total that we're asking for approval.
Could you please run the
I'll give you a PowerPoint.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. As you know, we have been working very hard with the Higher Education Center. We have made a lot of progress in design. We are about finishing the construction documents, and I'm just going to give you a little update about where we are at in terms of the design of the project. And you can see this the site plan. We have on the west side the parking lot, and this is where our building is located in the lot. We have a courtyard, and we have 2 entrances.
Excuse me, I'm having a little trouble hearing.
Yeah, you
Okay.
stand, Alex, come stand down here by the speaker.
Yeah, I can stand somewhere here.
Yeah, speak louder.
Okay, so I was just going over the site plan, Linda, and I am just showing everybody where the location of the parking lot is and the building. I was telling them that we have 2 different entrances, one on the east side and one on the north side of the lot. And I'm just gonna go here.
Okay.
So now I am showing the floor, the first floor plan, and as you can see here, we have the furniture.
You have to stay down here.
Do we have a pointer, Pala?
Here. we go. Yeah, that worked. It came on.
It did work. There.
It
There
was-
you
There you
go.
go.
Top one.
Thank you. Okay, so here we can see the whole building has 15 classrooms and 2 labs, along with different collaborative or team work areas. This is part of the lobby, and we can use it as well for collaborative work. And it's also very, very flexible. All the spaces around the building. The offices are located in the first floor around this area, and here is the security offices for the entire building. The flex labs are here, and we have the adjunct faculty offices around this area, and along with some of the alcoves that we call, which are spaces where the students can congregate and study or get some work done.
Yeah, I think it's good to point out, the first area that Alex pointed to, that's the administrative offices, then faculty offices are around the hallways, along with the adjunct faculty areas.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Security-wise, are we going to have a big system like we do here at the school with cameras and all that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we can monitor it from here as well as there.
Oh,
Yes.
great. Oh, super.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump to the second floor, and it is a similar layout to the second floor. The difference is that we don't have the flex labs here in the second floor, but we have classrooms and adjunct offices in the same area, along with more classrooms. Yeah. So it's basically that. This is a view of the site. Here, everybody can see the solar panels on top of the building, along with a carport. That is what we lately integrated to the building, and this array is going to produce most of the energy that the building is going to use to operate. So on this
Alex, could we, and Linda, this is Tina Ledusky-Taylor. Could we point out that the solar array is not part of the HEC building construction project. It is being paid for by bond money, but a separate pot of
Right.
money.
It's coming out of the solar array
Right.
money, because we didn't need all $5 million for the array on campus. We had enough money to do both arrays out of the $5 million that was originally proposed.
yeah. So these
How,
are
when you stop here, how many square feet is this now?
34,000 roughly?
34,000.
34.
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. The solar array for this project is part of the solar array project that we're going to have on campus. So we're going to have 2 different locations for the solar array project. One is going to be here, SFCC campus, and the other location is going to be HEC building. And like I said, we're going to have car spaces, six car spaces here, and it's going to produce most of the energy that this building is going to consume. Yeah, please. Yeah, this is just a view of the main entrance. So, Matt, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the concept of the design of the building?
Okay.
Cool. So then we can hear.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Alex. And Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The building, as you saw with Alex's explanations, it's pretty much put around a central courtyard. I certainly can. Board Member Siegel, can you hear me? No.
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Again, this building is oriented around a main courtyard. And the main entrance, as you see in this view here, we're calling it the Collaborative Learning Lab. It's the big socialization space for the entire project. It's a place where students can come to use a computer. It's where students can come for tutoring. But we're kind of seeing it as kind of like the Starbucks space of the entire project. It's the place, so it's where the buzz happens. So as you walk into the building, you're gonna walk into a door to the left of this main piece of glass, but you're gonna be able to see all this action happening within the building. And with the clear glass, you'll be able to look through and actually see through into the courtyard. So the big idea there is to try to blur the inside and the outside spaces. Again, in Santa Fe, you can use outdoor space a good part of the year. So students can actually be out here in the front and also in the courtyard and still be part of this main social interaction type space. Because again, this is a separate building from your main campus, so there is no student union. So this is kind of the student union type space. The next one, President.
Can I ask a question about it?
Yes,
Are there
please.
security issues about those see-through corridors?
Actually, Board Member Romero, we feel if you can be seen and you can see, it actually helps security. It makes things a bit more secure. Like in stairs, we normally try to put a lot of lights and a lot of windows so there are no hidden corners for people to hide. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Do you want me to continue?
Sure, yeah, please.
Okay, continuing on, you can now see, again, this great PV panel array. As Alex said, that'll give us about 80% of the electricity that this building will actually use. The building will also use a ground source heat pump system. So it's going to be a very energy efficient building, and that's really going to help with energy costs as we move forward for the next 50 years. You can start to see the courtyard, and the courtyard's broken into a number of zones. In the forward area is the zone for entry into these flex slabs, because these flex slabs can actually be separated from the main building and used after hours. So we don't have to run the mechanical system for the main building, and again, that helps with efficiencies. As you get into the throat of the courtyard, more towards the right, you can see some benches. We're seeing that as possibly an outdoor classroom type zone and also a socialization zone. But then inside, that's really where the socialization happens, and that has the direct connection with that collaborative learning center, which is in the corner to your right, and that has all the great views in and out. Next, you're looking at a view as you would drive into the facility from the western entrance off of Siringo, as it turns into
This is
Alumni.
the main entrance portal here.
Thank you, Alex. Exactly. And you can kind of see the blue of the courtyard beyond. And you can also see the flex slabs. So we're trying to put these spaces also that have a lot of buzz and have a lot of activity kind of in view. We want the place to feel like it's being inhabited and there's people there all the time. Again, that's a safety issue. That helps with safety. Moving on. This is the southwest view as you would drive into the project from the west entrance. And the way we're facilitating the sun shading on the project is we're letting the building shade itself. It's something that we do with adobe. It's something we're used to seeing here in Santa Fe. You know, we see it a lot even in your campus here with the deep overhangs. And what we're doing the same thing here with these windows. We're setting these windows deep inside the building. And the windows are this U-shaped, which actually gives the opportunity to have some sort of a teaching space like this. The screen could be there. So that wall wouldn't be wasted in the classroom. It could be used for teaching purposes. I think it's something you're doing on your newer buildings too, and it's working very well.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thanks. So, and this is the main reason why we are here today, because we want your approval for the early work course. Yeah. So, okay, this is the main reason why we're here today. We want your approval of the early work amendment, $1,146,798. This is part of the maximum allowable construction cost. In the remainder, we're gonna ask your approval in a meeting later, and we're gonna provide all the information related to that remaining of the scope of budget at that time. But for now, this is what we need so we can start construction in January 15.
Probably sometime in February is when we'll come back and ask for the remainder of the budget.
Okay, and I think that's, well, this is just a summary of where this number comes from, and it is basically concrete, structural steel, and earthwork and paving, which is what we need to start construction at this point. Yeah. Yes.
I have just a question concerning, there was something about a transformer that was on the land. What's the story there?
Okay, Henry's gonna give you the
Yeah.
update.
So, were there any further questions with regards to the EWA? Early work group? Okay. Just a couple highlights to bring you all up to speed on our current progress on this site. We met several weeks back with Santa Fe University of Art and Design, and they kind of nonchalant, if you will. Can you hear me, Linda?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yes, they kind of nonchalant, oh, by the way, gave us dropped two bombs on us. One was they had said that Brother Ron, one of the members of the university there, knows where there is a buried transformer, and they would like to show us where that's at. And the other one was that, oh, by the way, they felt that they could close Alumni Drive anytime they'd like to, based on traffic issues. And so we took both of those issues seriously. We have significant planning in place for environmental remediation if that's the process we have to go. We've made all our contacts with the state. We've let the higher education department know that this is in the process. We've worked with the city and the state to make sure that we've covered all our bases, and if we do come up with an environmental issue, to mitigate the issue, we hired a vendor who is proficient at ground radar testing. It's called GPR, and GPR is a geophysical type of test that allows that uses a machine to send radar pulses into the ground and get a subsurface reading of what is under the subsurface. The ground penetrating radar that we used was good for 5 feet. When Santa Fe University of Art and Design told us where this location was, they gave us a 90-foot diameter circle and told us it was somewhere in that location. So we proceeded to procure the contract with the vendor. They went out and did a GPR test. They went 5 feet down and came up inconclusive. They found no large pieces, no structures, no large pieces under the ground, to the depth of 5 feet. We took that as very good news. Meanwhile, again, we took every precaution we could. We looked at best case, worst case scenarios. We developed an environmental remediation plan. In the event we have to kick it into gear, we're prepared and we're planning to do so. With regards to the remediation, we have concluded that there is no transformer, at least acknowledged by the ground radar test. We're going to make sure that we have an environmental expert on site when we start the earthwork. So if an environmental issue comes up, we'll have an environmental expert, and we've got a preliminary plan in place that we can kick in gear and start remediating the issue immediately. So we feel very confident with our planning, we feel very confident with our results, and we're ready to move forward. Did you have a question, Linda?
I have a question, yes. What, you talked to the state, and since the state sold us this land, what are they saying their responsibility is? Because I know when the county ran into the problem building the courthouse, that the state had to come in and help remediate.
The state at this point is saying that they concluded a phase 1 assessment and nothing was found, and they're speculative on Santa Fe University Art and Design's comments. But we can't take speculation. We have to pursue it with vigor and with diligence. But their comment initially is, until anything is identified, they feel that they're confident with the phase 1 assessment.
Because we sometimes get questions about things like what are they planning to do, could you send us copies of this plan?
Absolutely.
Thank
Yes,
you.
we will. Yeah, it's a worst case or best case, worst case
Yeah,
scenario,
right.
and yes, we'll send you copies. And these are all of our planning, some of the preliminary reporting and work that we'll have to do, and some of the contacts within the state and so forth that we'll have to pursue if in the event we do come up with an
Thank you.
environmental issue.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I see.
So I have another question. When you did the ground radar, did you do any other area or just the area that Santa Fe Art and Design suggested?
We only did the 90-foot diameter circle. That's the only area that we tested with the ground penetration radar.
Okay, Kathy?
So when we start to build, It's just gonna be a much bigger footprint than that
Yes, and,
90-degree
yes, and
circle.
what we've decided to do, Linda, is we've hired an environmental expert, and that environmental expert will be on site. We expect the earthwork to take anywhere from 3 to 7 days. The environmental expert will be on site initially. If we don't find anything during our first cuts, we'll ask them to come on call. If they're still concerned while we're doing our first cuts, we'll ask them to stay on while we continue the cuts. If we identify an environmental issue, we'll have an expert and we'll kick our plans into gear.
Okay, Kathy Keith has a question.
So I see in the remediation proposal, there are numbers listed. So what is the worst case scenario in terms of us finding issues during the remediation, and how does that impact the budget?
Okay, good question. The worst case scenario is we identify a transformer. The transformer is a large transformer, and the transformer has PCB oil contained within it, and to make it even worse, the PCB oil has leaked into the environment. So we have what we call an environmental release. If we identify an environmental release, which all of those contributing factors are cause that environmental release, we're looking at developing several plans that we'll have to put in place with the state. We'll have to include an environmental work plan. We'll have to submit a report initially. We'll have to hire an environmental consultant to test the material, test the earth, determine the quantity of PCB that's escaped to the earth, that's been released, and then we'll have to put a plan together to lift out the transformer and dispose of it. New Mexico does not take PCB waste, so we'll either have to transfer that transformer, if it has PCB oil, and the waste we'll have to transport either to Nevada or California. And that's where the expense is actually incurred. And we're looking in that event of anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000.
Plus the impact on the schedule.
Plus the impact on the schedule, and that could be even more detrimental.
So when you're doing, when you're saying you're gonna be initial cutting, does that go deeper than 5 feet?
No, our cuts are between 3 and 4 feet max, so the
So
5
how
foot
are
depth-
you gonna, if they haven't found anything at 5 feet, how are we gonna find anything if it's less than that?
In that area only, in the 90 feet
Outside of
diameter
the
Okay,
circle.
so, all right, I got it.
So yeah, in that 90-foot diameter circle, that we have tested to a 5-foot depth, 90-foot diameter. There's
So what we're
nothing
saying
in
is that
subsurface.
it might be in another place.
If it is, the team is taking precaution if it is in another place. That's why we have an environmental expert on.
Isn't it illegal to have buried that anyway?
Yes, but that's,
Maybe not 90.
the phase 1 assessment should have identified it. So there's a lot of questions that I raise. But it's late in the game, and it's speculative at this point, and we're pursuing it professionally.
Tina?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we've also now had 3 phase 1 environmental assessments done on that piece. The city did one when they were selling or buying the property from the former College of Santa Fe. Then another one was done when the state was purchasing the 4 parcels, including Track C, which we purchased from them. And then we had to do another phase 1 environmental assessment to get approval to buy the land from the higher education department. All of those environmental assessment, we didn't have to go to the phase 2 for any of those. And there was reference to a transformer in the phase 1 environmental assessments, but just that it could have been there, but now we have done the due diligence that we needed to do based on the current information that we have. And I think that the team, the construction management team is feeling confident. We've got it taken care of, and as you pointed out, Chair Abeta, we're not going to be going down further than 5 feet, and so we won't be disturbing anything that's there, and it's not going to be at a level that would create any problems.
When there's leaks, don't they seep through the, they don't sit there 5 feet down,
No.
they go all over, right?
Yes, they do. And so that would be the extent of the environmental experts' work would be to determine if there's a release and how far that release is
If they've
traveled.
already determined that there hasn't been, or?
Well, the only way we've determined is we've looked at the subsurface with the ground penetrating radar and we find no objects at a depth of 5 feet, to a depth of 5 feet.
But the testing equipment does not pick up PCBs.
It does not, we're only looking for large objects, no, it does not pick up PCB oil. But on the other, to that event, I don't know the PCB oil would got there unless it was poured or it came through a transformer. So we're looking for a large object that contains oil. And the newer transformers contain mineral oils, so there would be no problem. The older transformers have the PCB oils. So this would be
If
an
we
oil-
looked at at what happened at the county, I mean, that just went on and on and on. Do you see that as a worst case scenario with us?
You know,
Could we
I
let
agree with
Robert,
what they did.
Robert Martinez with Hill?
Board, I was actually I was actually project manager on the county courthouse when we found the gasoline. But that was a leakage from 3 different gas stations over a 30-year period of time. And quite frankly, what happens is that gasoline just floated more or less in place for that 30 years. It moved, but it didn't move very much. What you're talking about here is maybe a 200-gallon spill, which isn't very much. Compared to that, they're still cleaning that site up. This is probably something, if it didn't get into the waterways, we could clean this up in 2 to 2.5 to 3 weeks. So it's very tiny, is what I'm trying to say. It's a minor spill if it is a spill.
and as Robert points out, obviously, in the worst case scenario, if there's a groundwater issue, that throws everything way out of bounds. And it would take a lot more effort through the environmental department if there's a groundwater issue. But again, we're only 5 feet deep, so we don't anticipate any groundwater issues at all. That concludes the update on the transformer. There is one more update on the easement, and that's with regards to the Santa Fe University of Art and Design making the statement, that they could close along that drive if they needed to. We took this as a serious comment, and we proceeded immediately to the city, and we asked the city what we could do in that event, and the city was very receptive. They offered us 2 options. First option is they would give us a temporary easement, and they would have to get that temporary easement approved by Santa Fe University Art Design. Santa Fe University Art Design has a lease agreement with the city, and any time the city is going to change that lease per their lease agreement, they have to provide a 30-day notice. So we came to Randy in a rush December 13th to ask for a signature on a temporary easement so we can meet the 30-day notice, so the city could go to Santa Fe University Art Design and change the lease on January 15th, before January 15th, to allow us to have a temporary easement. The long-term solution is the city is going to, which was kind of interesting, by the way, the city looked to perhaps give us this land in fairness for trade of equal value. And we 3 and the team members all sat at the table with nothing to offer. And so we sat staring at each other for about 5 minutes until the city finally said, well, perhaps we can give you this tract.
The city attorney, the acting city attorney said.
Which we found very favorable. And so the long-term solution is the city is going to prepare a lot line adjustment, which will incorporate that land as part of ours, and they're going to give us that land, that easement. The only problem is that the lot line adjustment would have to be approved by the city council, and the next city council meeting is not until February. And we couldn't wait till February, so they offered us a temporary easement, which we thought was very favorable. We find out lately, Tina can probably add to this, that the University of Art and Design is not pleased that the city did that. That the neighbors, and obviously we're going to be neighbors, so we have to figure out how to get along with each other. And one amendment to this that could provide opportunity for all of us is to come up with a road maintenance agreement. And in that road maintenance agreement, we would describe, we would share the responsibility for that road, and that would be the carrot perhaps for Santa Fe University of Art and Design to accept this.
On the visual, could you kind of orient me? I'm just not, so
This is
where is alumni
That curve.
as
this
opposed
is
to
this is a
when you go to
alumni.
Wingo?
This is Alumni Drive,
Okay.
and
And
this
it would run along
this
the
is Yaga
okay,
Street
okay.
here.
So Alumni is the road that runs, is it the parking lot
It-
into access into the parking lot for
actually-
the HEC?
It actually enters into the HEC site,
Okay,
and it runs north of the HEC site.
Okay.
Goes to the
This is
dorms.
the entrance that they wanted
Okay.
to close because they're concerned with events going into Greer Garson and.
Right.
No, no.
And there's where it goes.
Yeah, it's this one.
This one here.
And there's here's alumni here, and so this entrance is the easement that we're asking for. And they're concerned, Greer Garson's over here, they're concerned that with traffic from Greer Garson and traffic perhaps from more construction, that it would overwhelm their dormitories. And so they've asked us if we could do the majority of our interest from construction from the south. And
Where is Siringo?
So Siringo is here at the bottom,
Yeah.
Siringo's here.
and Santa Fe High School is like right where that circle is down here.
Yeah.
Yes. Kind of
Oh,
here.
okay.
And
Yes.
Siringo's here, and then here's Yucca, and then alumni.
Our building is located pretty much this area. Here is the parking lot. We have, like I said, two entrances, one from here and the other one here. So we can, let me go back to the side.
So did I hear right that the city council has to approve this in February?
To approve a lot line adjustment which would permanently transfer that easement property to Santa Fe Community College. That will formally put it on our plat.
So this is Alumni Drive here, and this is Jack Street here.
and how are we anticipating that traffic will flow? Will there be in and out at both of those points, or is it gonna be in one way, out the other?
We anticipate that the flow is gonna work this way. Cars are gonna get into the building through here, and go out here, and hopefully they come back through here and then go to Siringo again.
Okay.
Chair Vega?
Yes.
The primary entrance to the campus will be, the traffic will be coming off of Siringo Road up
Yes.
to the Alumni Drive portion that is the extension of Yucca coming up. It's called Alumni Drive. All the roads on the campus are called Alumni Drive. And that, and then, Alex, can you show the main entry off the south? Yeah, and then go around
Here.
and the exit go out onto Alumni Drive there, across that, what is now a temporary road easement that the city is giving us effective January 15th when construction starts. And are, from the very beginning, and I just communicated this with Matt O'Reilly from the city just a few minutes before this meeting started, our plan is to have traffic flow. We will direct our faculty, staff, students to have that be the main entrance off of Siringo Road, because the university is concerned about traffic going through the campus, either from St. Mike's and out Siringo or the other way around. And we don't plan to do that. And we've worked with McCarthy, our contractor in this project, to ensure that the subcontractors will be directed to come off of the Siringo Road entrance. They will use that temporary road easement as the egress for as long as we need to during the construction process. And in my conversation with Matt O'Reilly this afternoon, I said that we would find out from McCarthy when in the construction process could we have used south egress as the primary egress, and we can do that after the parking lot is completed and the road going to the parking lot. So and we will be meeting, the city is going to facilitate a meeting with SFCC, the university, to talk about all these issues. There already have been more informal conversations to resolve the issues, but the university continues to have concerns about the safety of their students on the campus, and we want to be good neighbors and work with them.
Chairman and Member Kathy, there's one more thing to add to Tina's statement, is that there's nothing that precludes you though from entering or exiting from both locations. You can do that.
So right now it's a one-way.
No,
No.
you could go, you
Okay.
can enter and exit from the
Oh,
other
okay.
side.
So. Any other? All right. Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
Okay, no, we're gonna do that right now. All right, so, we have, that we need to approve, $1,064,798 as first
Early work
phase, or early, and, so, do we have a motion?
And is this the board meeting? This isn't the work session.
This is board meeting.
No, this
Okay.
is the board meeting.
Well, I would move approval.
Second.
Who else? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. No one is against, so the motion passes. Going to approval of acting president's salary adjustment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Is this a closed session item? No.
I don't think so, no.
All right, that's fine.
All right, what is the proposal?
Well, I had suggested that, that we increase the president's salary by $3,000 a month.
And that's standard as far as I understand, correct? Linda, is that,
Yeah,
that's pretty
fair.
basic. Any questions or any problems with that?
No. I'm fine with it.
Randy, do you have a point of view?
Okay, all those in favor of increasing or making the adjustment on the acting president's salary?
Do we need a motion first?
We need a motion first.
I still move and that we make it retroactive to the day he became the acting president.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Don't spend it all in one place.
It's Chris.
And now we're gonna be, Randy, you'll be talking about the lottery scholarship, and I'm assuming we're going to be augmenting it somehow.
Scott Whitaker to come up. As you all know, the lottery has a $11 to $15 million shortfall to cover for the spring. The governor has put it on the agenda to ask the state to add a to cover that shortfall. But we are concerned about what happens to our students in case they don't cover or don't cover all of it. So many of our sister institutions around the state are doing special things to help cover that. And so what we're going to recommend, and I'll let Scott talk a little bit about it, but we're going to recommend that the board ask the foundation to provide the funding to cover a shortfall up to $48,000, and I may ask $60,000. I'll tell you why in a minute. And just in case, so that our students will know that they're 100% for the spring. This is just for the spring. And if we did that with the foundation, we would waive their unrestricted reimbursement for both last year, which we not paid, and for this year, just to keep things whole, because we can't use institutional dollars, use foundation dollars for this. So Scott, you want to just give a little background on what it's like?
Yeah.
Can I ask first, have we conferred with the foundation at this point? Yes. Okay. So you'll tell us about it.
The quandary that we're in is the same quandary that every public post-secondary school is in New Mexico. That we have students who are expecting 100% of their tuition to be this spring by the lottery scholarship, and we don't have any sort of word from HED that will be forthcoming. Every school is in this situation. It's just a matter of how is the school going to reality. Currently, in the last few weeks, a lot of positive things, both from the governor and from members of the Legislative Finance Committee, that they are hoping to kind of take a two-step approach in this legislative session. One is to provide money to scholarship for the spring, pay 100% of tuition, which would be the ideal scenario for us and not cost us a nickel, and then take the approach of trying to fix the lottery scholarship for the future beginning for the fall of 2014, to try to make that so that we don't end up in this situation, at least not anytime soon. So the governor has basically said that's what she wants to happen, and I've seen the members of the LFC seem at least amenable to that. That's all really good, but I don't think we can really rely on that. If it, you know as well as I do, it could all just not happen in the legislature, and they end up just punting the ball or just saying, sorry, we couldn't come to an agreement. And then we're left with, 250 students who are saying, so how much do I need to pay, or what's going on in classes? So it'd be better to have, I think, a plan in place so we can say right up front, this is what we're going to do. If this contingency happens, this is what we're going to do. Hopefully, everything's fine. And well, to the student, I mean, they don't really care whether the lottery's covered by a combination of the state and us, as long as it's covered. But we need to have something to be able to tell students and to plan on from a financial aid perspective.
Let me just add to that. Some institutions are committing to cover this 100%. Some are committing to cover just for those students who didn't have a Pell Grant. Institutions are saying, well, we're going to fund it 100%, but at midterm after the legislature, we may bill you for the half of it, and which we don't think that that's a good idea for our students. We think worst case scenario would be that it could cost us $60,000. When I turned in this agenda request, we had thought $48,000. I think the odds are that the state funds some, if not all, of the shortfall. So the odds of us having to come up with $1,000 to cover the 200 plus students this spring is minimal. But I think for us is that we provide it to all students, not just the students who do not have Pell Grants. Grant was just going to take money away from their living cost, the monies they used to live off of. So that would be my recommendation. I would also recommend, if you are inclined to approve this, that we change the number to 60,000 just in case that is the number. The amount of money that we bill or we reimburse from the Foundation for unrestricted expenses each year is about $30,000. 38,000 last year, so we would be in the ballpark if we had.
And it's a very pro-student sort of move.
Well, I think this is very important, and I'm really glad that you brought this solution to us. I think it's the way to go.
So, the student over there has a question.
Okay.
Also, as student government president, I've been attending meetings now where we're trying to make it so the lottery stays in place and save them money. So I just got an email a few minutes ago from the guy that's in charge of it.
Yeah.
So
the
we'll keep you
longer-term
guys
solution is important as well. Right now, we've got a immediate issue here with this.
But I'll keep you guys informed what's going on too.
Absolutely.
Scott has already sent out a letter to all the students that have been receiving, potential students to receive the lottery, about what's happening. So we'd like to be able to send out saying it's going to be covered no matter what.
Now, these that have been on the lottery scholarship possibly for 4 years.
No, they have a 4-semester maximum here at this school because we're 2 years. So nobody's been on it for that long here, but these are students that have been on it. The letter went out to students who are in their qualifying semester this fall, who have not received the lottery, but that they will in the spring, and as well as first, second, and third semester lottery recipients.
And will the rules change because we're putting in money? Will there, because lottery, it doesn't work with part-time, it doesn't do any, will any of those rules change? It'll all stay the same.
And Mr. Chair, this is going to apply just to the students who are eligible for the lottery at the present time.
And the 188 in the fall, is that going to be new students?
The 188 in this fall is the number of people who are currently receiving the lottery scholarship. Some of them will make it to the spring. Some of them will fall off because they didn't make the requirements. Others are in their 4th semester of lottery and won't get it.
Does that mean that, that those kids that are getting their GED, or people their GED and graduating from high school, will they not be eligible in the fall? Isn't this gonna jump up?
They have, Mr. Chair, they have to go through their qualifying semester. We have those bridge scholarships for those people. So remember, you have to get 12 credit hours, the 2.5 grade point average in one semester, and then the next semester you're eligible for the lottery. So recent high school graduates, recent GED graduates will still have to go through their qualifying semester.
So that's the number in spring, because those are the students that are coming off of the bridge scholarship.
Yes.
Lottery. Okay, cool. Okay, I got it.
But as you can see, the reason I put 3 semesters in here was so that you could see that fall 2013 was greater than fall 2012. I'm expecting spring 2014 to be larger than spring 2013. When I came up with my $6,000 number, it was based on that fact.
1,000 is meaning that 60%. That's the percent. Okay, cool. All right, question?
So, a question about when we talk about if we've approached them, what their initial thoughts are on it. And so what we're doing today is just approving the ask to the foundation. We're not approving, it's their fund, but we're approving the ask to the foundation for it.
So, Mr. Chair and Board Member Keith talked to the executive committee of the foundation. They were fully in support of this. In fact, Rachel Balash was going to be here today. I mean, I really have to be there. I've got something going on, and I said, well, I think we're okay. So,
Okay.
in a way, it's a wash for them anyway if we waive the reimbursement for expenses.
Okay, because if we're taking more money from the lottery, I mean, the foundation, does that mean that somebody's going to lose out on other scholarships, or is nothing? Cool, good.
One thing that, and Scott and I talked about this earlier, might happen with all the institutions supporting the payment that the state hasn't, that they might come back and say, hey, you know what, all institutions can pay this, so why do we have to pay 100% of the
And I'd like to respond to that. We did have a meeting of all the college presidents last week, and the community colleges, and we all discussed that because we did have that concern. Even if that happened, we still wanted to be pro-student at this time, and we just didn't think that in the long term. But we said we've got to do something for the students that we have right now.
Well, you know, this came out because they took $10 million of tobacco settlement money to short the lottery in this fiscal year, and then we got our tobacco settlement by anywhere from 12 to 20 million. And so that's caused a crisis. But the ongoing crisis is they've got some solutions, and I know one of them they talked about is putting a tuition, because the four-year schools keep raising their tuition. We just keep paying it out of the lottery scholarship. So I hope that we come up with a real fix this session, but who knows? But I really do believe that we'll back in from the general fund or from the reserves to make up shortfall from the tobacco settlement money.
And are they 33 million? Was that the amount they said that they were short?
No,
15 million.
they believe they're short 11 million. And the reason it's 11 to 15 million is they're not sure how much they're going to eventually get from the tobacco. It's certainly not going to be as much as it used to be, but they're still not sure if they're going to get that 4 million or not. And so that's why there's a range of 11 to 15.
So, Mr. Chair, I would staff recommendation with the increase of 60,000 rather than 48.
Second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the 60,000 for the lottery scholarship shortfall?
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
a
Thank you.
question on this, that it may behoove us to write a letter on our position on this. I don't know if we can do that on today's agenda as posted, but it would be helpful to have it to them before. I don't think our next meeting is until the end of January.
Do you think that
Before the session
is
starts.
Virginia lobbyist?
Yes.
So what did she suggest?
Let me ask Virginia. Virginia and a group of us are meeting with some of our delegation on Thursday, so maybe we'll bring it up there. Needs
Cool.
to be
We'll-
done.
So we'll be ready, you'll contact us.
Yeah.
All right? Thank you. Approval of the fiscal year 14 mid-year budget adjustment request. Brian?
Mr. Messman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Linda, I sent you an email a little while ago. I don't know if you have this. I added a summary sheet that I thought would be helpful to the board with Randy's approval, and I just an hour ago you didn't have it, so that has been emailed to you. It's not attached to your electronic packet.
Okay.
For the sake of Donna as well, for the sake of context, before we get too much into detail, I thought it might be helpful to the board to know two things about our annual budget adjustment request this year. It was actually due today. Henry interceded for us with HED, and they gave us an extension to tomorrow to approve our request. Ask the board to look at the summary sheet. This is the paper handout that I gave you. Randy and I realized in discussion with Nancy Grabowski, our budget director, yesterday, it would be very helpful to see this budget adjustment request in context of several years. And so, very simply stated from this request, the only thing I thought might be useful for the board to see is that this is an annual event. It does average about $1.6 million per year. It is increasing, as you see. It's trending over the last couple of years for reasons we will discuss momentarily. But the scale of the request in the context of average, although it's large for this year, this is an event for the college. Secondly, I think the value for the board to know, you may recall some communication we had back in late August or September where we were notified by HED that they were using our property tax percentage. And the board, we communicated with the board and then asked us to communicate back to HED that we would keep that number flat at 0.5% for this year. Now, the significance of that communication is realized in the course of developing the bar is that if you look back over the last 4 fiscal years, annually we have received $2 to $4 million of additional mill levy funding over what we budgeted. $16.6 million in 4 fiscal years. And so this is important for the board to realize the bar again, although it's a large number in context of the way our actual appropriation will be fine working through the bar. If we can switch attachment to the board packet, let's look at the
Comments before Brian goes into detail. I just want to let the board know that we've had a budget meeting for months now. We've been working to try to get this year's budget in line with what we're doing this year. The budget that was presented to you and approved last April did not account for the reorganizations, didn't account for a lot of things we were doing. We were actually left out. Some things were done quickly at the end. So we've gone to what we think is a good budget that's very representative of what we're actually doing. People being expensed, and it's a real budget process for next year's budget. And we do want to talk to you starting in January.
fiscal year 15, but it's a process to achieve what the goal a few months ago trying to put in. You notice on Exhibit 10 in instruction, we have a $1 million increase, which is quarterly adjustments to salaries.
And there's one other thing that's in there, actually $230,000 that in this year's budget, we budgeted for the revenue for continuing education, didn't the expenses of the instructors of continuing education. This year's budget, so that's actually $230,000.
Out, by the way, I want to know the way we arrived at the bar is that we literally came down to Nancy and Randy and I literally sitting face to face and Randy's our executive team meeting this morning, and I think everybody they're supposed to be salary and the right expense levels, and I'm sure in time we'll have a few changes overall. I think we're ready. The other I'd like to draw your attention to Exhibit 14, COM budget. DW pointed out a few months ago that for at least the last 2 and probably 3 years, we're running a large number of COM employees through payroll, running capital accounts, and we have adjusted them in they need to be in the operational budget. Are affecting the budget, but it's correct accounting, and it's what we needed to do. We have parsed it to make sure it's correct. It's an important going forward. That's an appealing budget. And then OIT, where you see $2 million change. Now OIT, this is another case where it required 2 fiscal years to accomplish what we set out to do. The 2 objectives for this year. One was to staff the appropriate level of people to accomplish what we're trying to do, which is very complicated, has been discussed in great detail. The other was to reduce reliance on consultants, which is about $100,000 a year. In this particular year, to accomplish that, we had the technical people and $500,000 of new equipment as we phase out the consultants, which we're working on collaboratively to accomplish the next 6 months. So as we go into again, you see phase in without the college yet realizing phase out. As we accomplish the fiscal year 15 budget, I think you'll see that turnaround. So in total, we're asking the board to approve what we'll be sending to HED tomorrow is a 3.538 budget increase that represents 1% of the budget that the board approved in May. And I want to emphasize again that what Randy said is most important for the budget to understand. That budget probably was more than a finalized budget. Things the board was at that time, if it was had been done that we've done recently for reasons the board. I want to point out the revenue area, and then I'll close and get out of your way for questions. Decided that because we had to close about a $2.5 million confirmed with the budget committee, it was specific enough, defensive enough to simply take average of revenues what was budgeted for the last 4 years. So I went back to the communication with the board 3.5 months ago, and what Nancy and I basically did was recreate, based on this year's property valuation for our county, what would happen if we had said them to go ahead with the 0.9% increase. That's approximately 1/10 of 1%. And what that produces is the 2.3 million number that you see at the bottom of the page. Now, we expect, based on the last several years of history, that number will actually probably be somewhere in the mid-3s. So, like with Randy's budget committee's agreement, that this number solves our problem. It's based on board communication and real financial analysis from an actual event. Hopefully, the good news will be if we have a year-end bar, any of those might actually be covered by additional mill levy appropriations. Which could be, by the way, you know, there's a $955,000 $500,000 number for retirement expenses that will occur over the next 6 or 7 months. That's the plan that the board put in place a number of months ago. And it may be that we do not have to draw down from reserves because of increases. So we have an 11% increase in revenue sources for these. We collective of administrators that the budget is at least sorted out, not exactly right. We're very close to having it sorted out, and so seeking from the board's approval today to forward this on to HED.
I want to add an additional item that we did build in. It probably should have had a second agenda item, so apologize for that. But we did build in the other 0.5% raise that we did not give staff. We had talked about when we remember last year we gave staff 2.5% and faculty 3%. We think there is room in the budget to give staff another 0.5% effective February 1st. Probably should have made that a separate agenda item, but maybe we can make the motion approval of the bar and a 0.5% raise for the
That's
staff.
included in there.
It's included in the
Yes.
bar, but it probably should be spelled out in the motion.
Top yellow line, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
so it is in there. So we would like to do that effective January 1st.
Mr. Chair, I have one question. Is that draw from the reserve, that's a significant draw. Is there an expectation that will replace it? I mean, I understand that if there's an increase in the mill levy, but other than that, how do we replenish that reserve?
Mr. Chair and Board Member Romeo, yes, hopefully just overages we will likely receive this year. We thought this is the worst case scenario, is to say since it's a one-time expense, we thought we could point that out, that it could potentially come from the reserve.
So worst case scenario, we don't get a mill, I mean, it's highly improbable, but it could happen. What happens, I mean, that almost draws our reserve all the way down.
About approximately half. And Dr. Romero, we presented this way mainly because, in all honesty, I did not want to present the board with a $3.4 million increase and have this number buried and have the board either realize later because we didn't repeat $1 million and this is related to retirement. But I do agree that this is probably a worst case scenario. I think it's probably unlikely that we'll see that number.
And I believe we also think this is the worst case scenario for the amount of the retirements. We had to gross it up for benefits and everything.
Right.
And so we did that at the worst case scenario. So it may come at less than the 955.
Our working number, Nancy, I believe, was in the mid-sevens actually. The actual working number is about 200,000 less, but we thought we'll explain to HED what we most conservative case.
The earlier draft that you sent us, I think, had a smaller number.
It did. Correct.
Question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so on the $1,000,001 new full-time faculty salary, what is the current faculty salary amount, and why are we adjusting in such a large amount? How many faculty does that account for?
Mr. Chair and Board Member Single, of that $1,230,000 is the amount I mentioned earlier that we did not budget for continuing education salaries for teachers, and those are all adjunct or part-time faculty. We did hire 10 new faculty members this year. 8 of them or 7 of them are full-time, and 3 of them are permanent, and 3 of them are on contracts, which we do anticipate that we will probably post and continue those for next year. But when you take the salaries and the benefits, and because we've actually gone, our adjunct salaries have actually gone up a little bit too. We spend it on adjuncts. We did implement the new faculty salary schedule and the new adjunct salary schedule, and that was not fully in last year's budget. So some of this is adjusting for what ended up being the actual salaries. Actually, some of the costs from Exhibit 11 to Exhibit 10, because we now have 10.5-month chairs. They're faculty positions, and they used to get paid out of a summer chair budget, some of which was in Exhibit 11. So we've actually moved some dollars from one exhibit to the other.
Okay.
Didn't we anticipate adding 10 or so new faculty when we did the budget?
We originally planned for 5 new faculty members when we did the budget.
So is that 10 more or 5 more?
So we hired ended up hiring 5 more. There's a couple of savings. We do a couple of vacancies this year, FMLA leave, and some people retiring in January. So the net is really about 8 net new positions for this year, when the budget was really called for just 5.
So 8 new positions, some of those are replacement positions or not?
No, these were net new positions.
Net new positions.
There were others that were replacements too.
I see, that's where you get the 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, the 10 is, we actually hired some people on 1-year temporary contracts for some new program areas that we just needed to do something.
And at the end of their 1-year contract ends in the fall of 15?
No, it ends in May of this year. Many of those we will be looking at those. Many of those we will hopefully include in next year's budget. We'll post positions for them to apply as either permanent full-time faculty positions, or we could do another 1-year contract if need be.
Those,
The 1-year contracts, there's no guarantee of continued employment after the 1 year. So that's the difference between the two.
Okay, on the reclassification from capital, that 548,000. So, explain that to me. We're paying it. We're just paying it out of the capital account.
It was originally being paid out of capital projects because they were doing work primarily associated with those capital projects. Andy, you want to add something to that? If so, come over here real quick.
Yeah.
This is Andy Radio.
Board Member Siegel, Chair. These were just people that were essentially hired short-term, I believe, initially, and buried in the plant fund budget for a while. But clearly have been on staff now for a while. Needed to be assigned permanent position.
for a while, meaning months, years?
Years.
Years.
Years. As many as 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
On temporary status.
And this would,
We had them paid out of plant funds and not out of operations, so we were dipping into the plant funds and paying for that every year,
That's correct.
and now they're just in operation.
We're proposing that we want to get them where they really should have been for most of that time.
And is there
But are these people who should be permanent employees, or who are permanent employees?
They are, and in fact, folks have been performing permanent employee duties since for a couple of years. They've just been in temporary status. And in fact, we're not really depicting what it costs to operate this institution because we have so many temporary employees. In order to really give a just cost of what it costs to operate this institution, we need to bring those staff full time, and we need to show what it really costs to run this institution.
So we have no
And
limit
they
to
Yes.
Yes.
The positions are permanent. The employees may have to, in some cases, if they were hired as temporary employees, we may have to do a posting to legitimately go through our process, but we want to make the positions permanent.
So we have no outside limit for how long a temporary employee is temporary. Is that true?
Well, we were supposed to have an 18-month to 2-year limit.
And do we have a policy on that? Or do we
It's
just
vague. It's one of the
think
policies
about
that
it?
there's a couple of conflicts that we need. That's one of the policies that needs fixed.
So we'll be working on it.
Yeah.
and Ms. Siegel, I might point out as well, just specifically, you're aware of some of the details. These positions were run through our 91,000 fund series, which is plant funds. And you might recall that we talked about at the September board meeting that the administration was correct in estimating about $1.8 million a year in temporary positions. The difficulty in September was that we did not know where they all were, and that's what we spent the last 2 or 3 months identifying all these people and what they were doing, and what the goal was. So that was what came out of this when Andy Daddio became the director of technical accounts. That was one of his initial primary functions, was to find out exactly what we were doing so we could get these people positioned correctly.
Okay, and then the new staff for technology, the 1.2 million, that is all staff, but I thought I heard you say some of that was equipment?
Mr. Chair and Member Siegel, some of that is contractual dollars to keep the contract in place. Some of it is equipment dollars. Some of that will go away in a year, not all next year, but over this year and next year, as we phase in the new staff that we're hiring, that's gonna save us money in the long run. It's just gonna take us 2 years to transition from where we were operating to the new way, less consultants, some new equipment, and more staff that cost us less consultants.
When the board, Ms. Siegel was first told about this, I believe in June, the numbers that were reported were about $600,000 of added expense and about $600,000 of savings from the contract. I would at this point realistically say that by the time all the dust settles, as you see here, we have a $1.2 million increase. I think we're looking at about a $900,000 savings as we go into fiscal year 15. So that is to say that when all the dust settles, we will have increased the OIT budget probably about $250,000 to $300,000. But from a bang for the buck standpoint, that will be well spent money for the institution because of the gains in technology that we're benefiting from.
So is there a way, once this budget adjustment goes in, you could see the payroll amount for the last several years to do some comparison? Because, I mean, this does seem like a lot of money in a budget adjustment just for payroll.
Mr.
Right?
Chair.
I'm hearing the explanations. I really would like to see the payrolls over the last few years in comparison.
Mr. Chair and Member Siegel, we have done a preliminary analysis, and I will be hopefully sharing that with you at the January work session.
Great. Thank you.
I have a question. Is it Andy? So you did this search of all temp positions. Where were the majority of the $1.8 million in temp positions? Were they in faculty? Were they in staff? Where was this money being spent?
Yeah, the only ones I looked for were in the plant fund because they were obvious. And those positions were covered by institutional funds, so it didn't come with bond money, but it was ultimately covered by institutional funds that had to be transferred.
I mean, what I'm asking is, what department were they in? Where was the money being spent?
It shows up in the plant fund under the unexpended plant. So it's just one fund within the unexpended plant where these were coming out of.
Most of the people were paid through plant operations and maintenance.
Okay, and I'm asking is, who were they? Was it secretaries? Was it teachers? Was it?
Yes. In this group, about almost $600,000 in POM, people doing plant operations, but also, and Nancy, you might want to address this because we have temps in many areas. The answer to your question is yes.
Yeah, that's what I
have
understood.
Staff positions all over campus, and the difficulty with these, and the administration told the board this correctly some months ago. The difficulty is that this is in essence an unaccounted for payroll flow, and so moving employees that you're looking at a budget. So if Dr. Romero were to look at a budget for an area, you would not realize that there may be $200,000 a year positions pooled together. You can't see them. So as we correct those, two things. One is that where it's appropriate, positions are being permanentized. That's what should occur. Other areas, positions are being eliminated. But I would say, I don't think it is too high certainty to say that going into the fiscal year 15 budget, where there are temporary positions, they will be more methodically planned, and the board will know what the issue is. We know the amounts, we know where people are. All of the decisions about what happens with these individuals going forward are not completely concluded yet.
So my understanding of temp positions, and maybe I'm wrong, are these temp positions getting the full salary? They're not, right? They're not getting a lot of.
They're not getting benefits.
They're not getting any benefits at all.
Term temp positions are.
How could they continue for 2 years just knowing that?
They're continuing on the basis of good performance, assuming at some point in time there'll be a job that can come out that they're going to apply to and get.
Or in some cases, we've had employees where a department head realized who they had working for the institution and said, we need this person on board, and we made an offer and we permanentized the employee. But in general, this has been an ongoing flow, representing about probably 6% of the institution, 6 to 7% of our operational budget. And we're fixing it. And again, you see a large chunk of this. Here's why these look like large numbers, but going forward, these are numbers that will fix that.
And 1.8 million is just 2 years, or has it gone on for 10 years, or how long has it gone on?
What I was gonna say was that we started looking at temps a year or so ago, and that's part of where some of the savings and some of the money came for new faculty or for various things. There are uses of temps that having a temp for 2 years just seems a lot. We temps in the advising area. They come in for a month at the beginning of the year. You know, I mean, those are the kinds
That's a real.
That's a real, that's kind of what you need
Not a
them
permanent
for.
temp.
For 2 years, it was unfair to the temp, unfair to the.
But didn't it last for more than 2 years? Weren't there some temps that were here for more than 2 years?
Yes.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, in the case of Palm, we have basically movers and furniture assemblers, maintenance workers, and mechanical technicians, and some project managers. That's the gist of the Palm area. And these folks were employees for over 2 years, some most of them. And all this time,
But along that line, those temporary employees were showing up in payroll, weren't they?
Yeah, they were showing up in payroll. They were showing up in the plant fund, so they didn't show up in the true payroll accounts on the reports the way we would look at them. That's why we're trying to get this all in the right place.
Right, this, Ms. Siegel,
Right,
that
I
particular
understand. I'm
group.
just saying that those numbers have always been reflected in the overall payroll number.
It was
I would suggest, Ms. Siegel, from an accounting standpoint, that the difficulty is that what you have are numbers included in payroll numbers that we reported to the board without having to acknowledge to the board about $2 million a year worth of employees as to exactly where they were. And in some cases, like when handling the budget committee, when we realized a few months ago that we were going to communicate with this board, you realize that what you're going to say to the board is something that the board may not be pleased to hear. And the other side of this issue is, I personally, as a CFO, could not tolerate a philosophy where we simply reduce these people who have worked for the college for a number of years, many of them are outstanding employees, and so we simply arbitrarily said, we got to save $1 million here, so you people are fired as of next Friday. So on one hand, we have a complication of communicating this correctly so that from an accounting standpoint, the board administration knows who we're paying and what we're paying them for, rather than just barely giving a large payroll number. And then the additional complication is that we really are trying, in as many cases as possible, take care of the employee where we have a win-win for the institution and for the employee. And you can see that complicated process, we're making progress here. At least we know where they all are, and we know what to fix at this point.
And let me add too that everybody did show up in payroll, but when we focused on our reporting, we've always looked at the payroll of various exhibits, not necessarily the plant fund payroll. And so most people show up in exhibits 10, 11, 12, 13, some in 14, but they were in plant funds. So that, yes, they did show up as total payroll, but we haven't payroll over the last few years, at least in that way. And that is one of the things that's on the analysis that I'll be bringing you in January.
One more
Right,
question.
and I appreciate all, trying to get these in the right category. I just want to make sure they're still being reflected as payroll.
Yes, in total
Yes.
payroll they were, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Question.
okay, thanks.
Okay, so if we're improving the banner system, is that going to help us in finding all these things and finding out? Because I'm assuming, or maybe I'm totally off, that the banner system was not operating properly and not giving us the information we needed, then we couldn't keep track of the temps and all that stuff. Right?
Yes.
And so what we're doing now, I'm assuming also that this 600,000 or whatever it was consultants that's getting out of the way. We're going to doing what we have to do with the banner system so that we better track what's going on with all the temp money and all that other stuff.
Mr.
Correct?
Chairman, things have to happen. And we're working on all these tremendous strides this semester. Banner should be reported correctly, and we're working on that, and we have discovered that it's not as broken as we thought, and we're making great strides.
Okay.
And the next issue is the budgetary process has got to be transparent, and so anybody who should be commenting on it, and if I need Randy's eyes as Vice President of Academic Affairs any other way, we got to be talking to each other. And then is before the board sees it presented, or we where people are, we got to look at each other as a team of professionals and say, is this? And that's the importance of what's happening. So you get this group of people who, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good band is. We have the best spreadsheets in the world, but we've got a group of professionals being paid, and the board has entrusted to look at each other and say, is this right? And is it clear? Those three things working together will make a huge strides. And I think by the time we present it in the spring, you'll see a different.
It's good to know that those professionals.
Yeah.
Maybe some more. Pull that for. One of the things we're all doing though is capabilities in Banner. So
That's right.
we haven't been getting all the reports we really needed, and so with a lot of changes, the upgrades to Banner, we now get better reports. As soon as we get our data warehouse up and going, we're going to be able to do other types of reports, dashboards that are good to give us some management tools that frankly I can't believe we don't have. So,
Okay. We're ready to move on? I think.
I guess what I want to, the surprise is the clearly we voted on reorganization and knew that we were hiring additional faculty and that now but we talked about IT to the board. We really talked about it being a wash. We were making an investment that there was going to be an offset. So it surprised me to see that we're 1.2 million more than we were going to be. So what are our projections for it being?
Well, again,
When are we going to see that number? That savings come into play?
Numbers, member Keith, again, as I said a moment ago, Ms. Siegel asked a similar question a while ago. When the board approved this with the you were 600,000 washed against 600,000.
Right, so zero expense.
And that's what
and
you
now
were,
we have $1.2 million.
that's what you were in June. What happened is, and again, that was less analytically sound than it should have been. That was politically sound than it should have been. We know now, actually, hiring process, Chris De La Rosa is having to doing. You got to have know what they're doing, and so what we're now looking at is about 1.2 million that I believe a good estimate is a few minutes ago said it'll wash against about 9,000 in savings, and so we will have, and this I think will primarily be personnel issues and consulting net out of $250,000 to $300,000 increase. I would say that the main thing I think should have been referred to the board clearly was important. It's a 2-year process, and it was not. I don't think it was presented with it just wasn't perhaps presented so that the board would realize to spend this money in fiscal year 14, our savings will occur in fiscal year 15. So when we get to the point where we're washing down to zero, $200,000, we're going to be in May of 15. Is that right? This year.
it's going to take this fiscal year and next fiscal year to fully
so,
get to the
so it'll be the fiscal year 16 budget that you'll see it completely out. It's a lot longer than you expected and more expensive than you expected.
And don't forget part of this. I think it's 300,000 equipment is in this.
That-
That's a one-time cost.
And how many employees are hired? So if it's 300, I heard you say 500,000, so 300,000 equipment in the 15 employees, is that how many added to IT?
Sure. To the board, but I'd say seven or 8, and professionals. We're
7 of some of them are pretty high salary
Project
because
manager.
they're database managers.
Working together for.
So they were
SFCC,
costing more on the contract.
And they're happy to be here making less.
All right. Any more questions anymore?
No.
Sorry.
Just one other clarification. In the line item for full-time faculty, where is reflected the positions that were cut in order to do that? The dean, administrative staff, whatever,
Yeah.
all the people that
Exhibit 11, that's where the budgets were. That there is an increase because there were we hired technicians that we hadn't originally planned to hire, and so that's where the offset is. But most of those savings were in Exhibit 11.
Okay, I don't have any of those exhibits. So, if we have all these savings, they're not reflected in any of those line items we're approving. So, how do we know that the savings are offsetting the expense of salaries?
I remember the analysis doing. I remember the original budget didn't reflect the changes. It reflected, unfortunately, some of the projected savings, but of the projected hires.
That's it. And it might be worth this also, we went through line item details. Randy, Nancy, and I strongly agreed that we decided to leave in place for to be conservative as a thing. So there are some hundreds of thousands of dollars that are here, probably be bar, but we felt it was important to leave them here because those flow necessary between now and the year. I would totally in total represents $100,000 that was in abundance.
What are in the
Bill that probably are still in the spring, and so we make some assumptions as to whether those are going to be filled or not. Drawing here for a faculty salaries is a concern of ours because we have almost no seats available in the spring schedule, and the only way we're going to have more classes if we hire more adjunct faculty. So trying to and analyze that a little bit.
And then some aspects of the there are several areas of the executive management budget area decided it was probably to make changes in this at this point. It's important. This was intentionally created very, very competitive, and I would say it is probably so by a solid 15%. I think it was important to come to the board and with very conservative numbers, and that way we have news in the spring when we have a bar and we're telling, okay, we were right. We wrote some of these things down, and it looks better than we thought mid-year.
well, I would like to see all the as opposed to happen so that it would be a wash, not just in this area, but everywhere. For the next few months.
All right.
Okay.
Kathy? No, you're done? Okay. Approval of the fiscal year 14 year adjustment request.
And I would ask if you also for the 0.5% raise for the staff.
And raise. Okay. Do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in the approval of the budget adjustment with the 0.5%? Aye. Okay, the motion. Thank
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we had requested that the board member process be to enact. I don't see it that way on the schedule. Is that still possible to do?
Well, I think we have to go back to the beginning where we approved the as it was, and that, and say that we would item be moved?
Susan, say no.
I see. Yeah. It's supposed to be available 72 hours.
For the future, that's really important, so that we don't depend on the board for those investments to be made.
So, Susan, so in previously in board meetings, when there was some, you know, if we talked about it in session and there was, we wanted to move in the agenda, it was brought up at the time, and it was brought up as if I would like to move it to, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
That-
That's been, I mean, that's what we're proceeding.
And well, do you want to
That's the thinking, not for any other reason, just it's an agenda item.
typically you're going to have it on an agenda that the agenda shouldn't be revised within 72 hours?
No, but it can be revised. I'm not asking that question about that procedure. I'm asking, is the member selection process a different process to go to?
No.
So it's not.
No.
Okay. So can we do a adjustment now?
Yes, if that is in the past.
In the beginning.
We do it at the beginning. Because I stuck in any kind of legal things that way. We do something that should have been done at the board meeting. You know, so you know what do you suggest?
She's told us that she's suggesting the wrong thing.
Okay.
That we're not here out, we
Okay.
should not be doing
That's
that.
right. With that then?
Yeah.
If what I heard her say is the agenda will be final 24 hours before the meeting. So we've been doing that. We probably shouldn't have been doing that.
Right. Well, then we'll deal with it as an information item. Okay.
I guess we'll have to.
Okay. Let's go with the first one. Update on capital request for 214 legislative session.
News, so it should go for briefly. We've got proposals going forward. First, well, let me give you a little background. We originally Santa Fe Community College requested $2 million from the GOB. In August, it went forward through HED, and HED recommended $2 million, and I fully feel that we received that legislative process. After we reviewed our master plan of our existing status of some of our campus boilers, chillers, and our roofs, we felt that we should have asked for a little more money, and we should have asked for a little more money, but Santa Fe Community College and asking for 25%, providing 7%. So we went back, Randy and I worked on this extensive report for Alex and various staff and that. We developed these project request forms. We've asked the state for additional request. We need, in addition to the $2 million, we're asking for $2 more million. We're asking $1 million in addition to and we're asking for, if you recall, our proposal was built. Well, what we've done is we put that into two phases, and we've asked for planning and programming money for $2 million. We're going to ask for the last to plan, program, and do live. $2 million in success and accomplishment. And fiscal year 16, we'll go out for bond again, and we'll ask for remaining funds to build it, to construct that building.
Forever.
It's 12 million. It's going to be about 400. This planning and program will allow us to go out to the states, get some collaborative partnership, regional funds to build it. There's some additional that we're asking legislators, and perhaps we'll decide on those.
So what we're doing, we're going, as you know, you approved a request for some funding for $3,000. We're going to actually lower that $1,000 operating money and $2,000 outlay to do the planning for we would need for what would be considered capital projects. So we're asking for that out of severance tax bonds. We're also asking for another $53,000 for equipment that we need for the TV station. So we're going in for $303,000 roughly from severance tax bonds. We met with Representative Jim the other day, group officer meeting Thursday morning to talk a bit more about that. He seems to think that that's, and then we're asking then for the balance of this money out of the GEO bond. We got the $2 million that's already in there and about another $2.2 million that we're trying to see if we can get an increase for. That's going to be a big fight to try to do because it's going to come away from some other institutions. But we thought maybe we'll be positioning ourselves for the next time.
We'll be looking in New Mexico Station and
The big boys.
But we did sort of follow the lead of Representative Trujillo, who chairs Capital Outlay, and he thought that this was a good way to go and wasn't a bad ask to pursue it. I do want to expand. We're not really looking at just library. We're really looking at a library and a technology hub that would be together. So this planning money, if we were to get it, would be great to help us now really come up with the concept of what would it really cost for that kind of building. But then we do have time, and Representative Trujillo also encouraged us to talk to the state library because they need to expand and do something jointly on our campus. So.
And we've reached out to the state and city library directors, and we're already starting our discussions.
At what point, I guess in the planning process, you consider updating technology needs and virtual books and all that, and library exchange?
I'm hoping that we will do that as our budget process this spring. We go through and ask people for their needs. This is our beginning budget for next year. We're going to be doing a process to ask for staffing, prioritize new equipment, prioritize why. I think as part of it, we're going to get some information. It would be major technology upgrades that we'd have to get additional funding for. I'm hoping we'll start that process. We do have a technology council. They're looking at projects. They've come up with a very comprehensive way of rating our projects and prioritizing them. We'll go through.
I have a question. The spirit of Bruce Besser, and he was really concerned about, our the books, price of books. It's turning out that are more than the class itself, and so there's a movement nationally on virtual books, and are we going to be part of that? As are we going to get to that, or are we, hanging ourselves by cutting the bookstore? What's the balance? And have we thought of that?
Mr. Chair, we have. We're looking at things we're doing. Unfortunately, publishers, the online books aren't much cheaper than the printed books. We are looking at different ways of different ways of offering them, subscribing to them. We have faculty who are in lieu of textbooks are doing research on the internet.
That's my question about library facilities. Is that libraries are going far more virtual than physical book collections anymore. They're real access to databases and that kind of thing.
And we have done that a lot. We actually have lots of shared databases. We have a comprehensive film program that faculty are using a lot, and they use students. All you got to be is have an A number, and you can go click over those. So we're using a lot more subscriptions than we are.
Carmen?
I did want to say that the bookstore is doing a rental.
Yes.
You'd know more about that, which is cheaper than buying.
People in the community, I have heard from many people that, they'd say, well, I want to get into nursing. The nursing book, I couldn't afford it, or I tried to get a for it. I had to sell my hoopty or something.
Whatever that is.
The problem with rental
Sorry, there are
The
problems.
problem with rental, however, is that it is not how college students learn. College students are encouraged to write it, they're encouraged to underline in books, they're encouraged to do a whole range of different synthesis that is part of being a higher. And so book rental, on the one hand, you're not permitted to do that, or you buy the book with somebody already that knows whether they're correct or not. So there's some real rentals that are problematic.
We're looking at that, right?
And then, yes, and unfortunately, the textbooks, healthcare classes, science classes, a lot of the books and things that are for the trades programs, which they really need to keep as part of their job, are the ones that are expensive. In many cases, they are 2 and in some cases 3 times the tuition cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it. It's just a hard.
Books that are, $1,000. And if you're visually handicapped and you have to get the book somehow translated into something.
There are some community colleges in California that are, just so you all know, can think about a reasonable thing to think about, that are working with publishers to publish, do in-house publishing material, and that's an alternative for people who have to keep their books. And
just related, I have some faculty members and some publishers, we make a Bible book, 30 chapters, we may only use 15 of them. Actually buy the 15 chapters electronically and either use online books or we print them in our books, find them.
One of the things when activities coordinator here at the college, we never get a good way of advertising these books. That's a big set, because if they buy a, let's just an example, if they buy a $100 book, the person is going to buy it for $10. So why not, sell it to somebody who's going to use it the semester? We could never find a system. Is there a system now in place? Still isn't.
Well, there's a system.
Still not.
The problem is the change the page and then it's out of print.
That's the old trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got 2 students with the same book in the class. The instructor says page 36 and page 36 is different in both books.
All right. Well, questions? Any other comments? Any other things concerning Capilotly? Henry?
No. We're good.
All right.
An action item?
no.
No.
Oh,
Remember we
I
approved.
do need to make a comment. I just here to be asking for planning money for regional library. Haven't really worked on partners beforehand. But that's all I'll say.
Okay. Well, we have to approve the way we come to the main thing, right, Linda?
Well, it's not in our master plan. And we have these conversations about how important the master plan is, and there was never a thought about it. And though it may be a really good idea, I just don't know, and I think it's premature. So that's my only comment.
Okay. Henry?
Intention, Member Siegel, is also to update our master plan. That's part of the feasibility study. We really want to study what is our campus, what facilities do we need.
We talked about it a little bit at the last board meeting, didn't we?
We did.
And we talked about the fact that the reason to bring it to think about it now is that the legislature will be over by the time of our next board meeting, and that it would be useful for us to know what the staff was putting in place.
And we also at the time had information that maybe there was extra money and legislators saying we should go after it, and we've sort of dug into that a bit more, and that's why we've got to scale back what we're talking about.
Anyway, the other thing too is I remember back in the day of Dr. Witter, maybe I'm pretty sure it was in the master plan, performing arts, and I think Santa Fe is a place that is people expect it.
Yeah.
It ain't happening. And it's like I think this that's being lost. That's just my comment.
Okay.
And we have we're a good college. That's important. I think it is. But there's also something about performing arts and those things that are, to me, they're very important, and they really speak of what Santa Fe. I think there's a lot of students we're losing, even going to the former Santa Fe, where I think I think that we could have just something that keeping that in your, okay.
I agree with you, Chris, and I think that part of the market educated person is that they have some appreciation for all of the visual and the performing arts, and we're giving shrift. I talked about it a little bit the last time, over forward for first reading.
Okay. The next item is board member selection process. Are we going to discuss that? Are we going to make it an action item? What is the process?
Well, we make it an item, so I guess what we should, I think, Linda, you had some ideas about that, right?
Linda?
Yeah, yeah.
That you were gonna bring forward.
One of the ways we've done it in the past is on a note to people, letting them know that we have an open slot and asking people to send in a letter saying why they want to be on the board, and the board goes through the resumes. They want to interview questions, or people, and then if we have one we would like.
Does that require an action?
Does that require an action? Yes, it does.
Okay, next.
What do you mean? Oh?
Does it require, it has to be an action item?
We would have to put the person in.
No, items to
For the
approve the process.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, so me,
Yeah,
I mean, do choice?
no, at this point we don't, but it would be nice to go forward again.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, so you have choices. You can either wait on the board meeting or we get a special meeting just for that purpose.
It's possible we could have another. So.
Okay.
oh,
January possibly.
I think that
we can have a telephone perhaps.
Yeah.
That is
January.
just that,
We'll set to get it posted.
yeah.
Donna may have to get that done before we close on Friday, because if it happens that first week, we have to get the legal. Yeah.
Okay. Can we phone conference?
I'll be here. I don't need to.
I'm here after the 2nd of January. You, Linda.
Linda said you'd be back on the 22nd,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Second?
So could we do it maybe
January 7th?
January 7th?
that one.
Just one item.
And so we're gonna put that out on the newspaper. Do we need to?
We want to have some other, on the agenda also.
But we have to post them before the school closes.
Okay.
That's the problem.
And
Right.
I can talk with Donna about it.
Okay.
That's great. Get that happening.
So we'll tentatively right now to do a meeting on Tuesday, January 7th at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock. What do you want to do?
Sounds good.
Later in the day is better for me.
It's
3
better
o'clock?
for you.
Do it by maybe.
Oh, we'll do it by phone.
Oh. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. So
All right.
we'll set it. We'll talk about if there's any other agenda items. But for right now, it'll be board selection process.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so
Actually, I have a request that I'd like to make of Randy. If there is some way that the January we could have a report on. I noticed in that you put out that there is, we're talking about a 40% increase in the number of graduates. The data I got in my arm is it was 40% increase in the number of graduates. That's different than the rate, which is at 10%.
Correct.
So heads very clear about the difference between numbers and rate, but it's something that I would like the board to be able to know. Of those 700 plus graduates, how many years did it take them to graduate? I mean, is it 3 years, 5 years? And of the that were in that, I think there were 200 plus.
Right.
Certificates were 4 months, 6 months, 1 month. And then finally, how many students who got certificates are still here pursuing an associate degree? I think that's data that both in terms of our own planning in terms of our looking at improvement of the institution, those are figures that we really need.
We can have that for the January board meeting, no problem.
Thank you.
Some of that we
And
have.
that's a joint meeting with the schools,
That's correct.
okay?
That's okay.
Now, would it be there or here?
It's gonna be here.
It's gonna be, and
Okay.
there'll also be a work session, 3:30.
With
for
them?
us. No, just for us.
Okay,
The board meeting with them begins at 5:30 this year.
okay. We need to have, because we're having the board from the schools, do we need to be a little bit like offering and, you know, do we dinner? Okay, I mean, we're gonna, whatever.
We're gonna host.
I'm talking with Ann Gonzalez, who's in Joel's office, about what details we're gonna be. We haven't worked that out, we just gotten the meeting scheduled and the time for it, so instead of like offering them dinner and things like that, we haven't gotten that far.
Make sure that you find out how many of them need something that's
Okay.
But are they planning to be here? That a dinner doesn't make it at 5:30, but we usually do that as part of our work session.
Right, that's why, you know, it's still kind of, just normally later in the day, like 30 or 6. And I said, can you at 5:30? And she said, yeah. And I said, for how long? She said, usually it goes an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Nice.
So I don't know
One
if
went
they
to
have dinner after, you know, at the end of the meeting, perhaps have a dinner like at 7:30. I don't know. I
No,
mean,
that's too late.
Let's talk dinner at 5:30 and have the meeting start at 6.
Start at 6.
Yeah,
Out.
yeah.
Chair,
Go ahead.
one more item that I'd ask for is that the state auditor has sent an audit team over to issues that were in the audit. Would love to see, as soon as that's done, actually, of what those.
We, just, we, as we reported to the board at the exit conference, and communicated about the referral is after Dr. Romero, I think just a couple of weeks ago, Randy what the status was. I sent an email, copied Randy, which was a response from the auditors. We got a very polite response saying, in essence, nothing has changed and we can't talk anymore about this. So
It does not showed up to do it.
they have not showed up. We do not believe anything has changed from the exit early in the year. I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't have an agenda item for an update. I don't mean to cancel the board. I think, but if it has not begun at that point, the update would be nothing has changed, and that's as much.
Put it on the, at least at the agenda for the work session.
Yes.
Because
And
it may not have happened yet.
Yeah.
We heard actually was they originally said they thought they'd have it completed before year end.
Yeah.
The last feedback we got is contract
So
negotiation.
we don't need any information on the, it'll be early.
No, I think-
They will
I
not,
think it's too
the
early.
earliest they would be the 6th of
Okay.
January.
Yeah, and I apologize, Ms. Keys. I don't mean to sound obtuse about that at all. We just
No,
don't
okay.
know much.
I'll obtuse about that. All right, thank you.
Okay, going to go into a closed session?
Oh, Linda, move your.
Need a motion to go into closed session?
Now, we have a closed session for the purposes of discussing, potential litigation or existing litigation.
And personnel matters.
And then-
And personnel matters.
Okay,
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
All right.
motion goes.
That's your motion.